Welcome, everyone. Today, I want to introduce to you a good friend of mine. She is truly a franchise growth catalyst. Her name is Angela Coté. Angela has a background both as a franchisor and as a franchisee, which obviously comes in quite handy when acting as a franchise growth catalyst for franchise companies that are looking to create exponential growth twice as fast with half the effort, all while having fun. I mean, after all, she is Angela Coté. She's going to have fun. So Angela facilitates roundtables and recently launched Play Bigger Performance Group, where franchisors come to score bigger. So welcome, Angela. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you. And I'm super excited to be the first guest here. I think it's amazing what you are both doing, providing this forum and opportunity for women in franchising. And I'm sure lots of men will listen in and learn as well, right?
That's what we're hoping, Angela.
Yeah, yeah, we don't want to alienate the men. We want to educate them.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Well, we are so excited to have you. And you've had some very interesting experiences coming from being a franchisee yourself, working in a business with 500 franchisees, where you would go out and you would work with the franchisees in the field. And oftentimes that would be with older male franchisees. So I guess one of the questions that we have for you is, how did you do that? How did you communicate with someone 15, 20, 25 years older than you? You're pretty, you're young, you're a girl.
Thank you. Shy. So yeah, what you're referring to is my time in the field, and I was the 20-year-old female boss's daughter. I would show up and I would have to teach these older male franchisees how to run their business and try to get them to listen to me. One quick side story or kind of backstory on it is that I was working in another job. It wasn't very stimulating. I was telling my dad about that, and he said, we've got an area developer in Western Canada that's looking for someone to go out, work in the field and do this job of getting franchisees up and running. I think you'd be a good fit. Do you want to go do that? And so I went, I applied, and of course became a field trainer at the time. And they literally just threw me in. It was like the day one was, go open this store. There were 2 stores opening on the same weekend. And our system was the field people would go there for 2 weeks, a week leading up to get everybody trained, and then a week open and being there with them. And just because I had grown up with it doesn't mean I knew how to open a store. I just knew how to work in a store and what the business was. So that was an interesting introduction to it. And so, yeah, I think, what happened was I realized right away that in order to get people to listen to me, and especially these older male franchisees who had invested their life savings, that I had to come at it with not the approach, maybe the opposite approach of what people would think. And I had seen this as the years went on with other people that would try to come at it as a more assertive, person with like, I'm coming to, kind of be more commanding. I figured out right away that wasn't going to work. And so it was more of a listen to the franchisee, let them, tell me what they think first. Often that would enable them to sort of build their ego up a little bit if that's what they needed. Because do they really want to listen to this, young female, 20-year-old boss's daughter? So I would try to kind of give them that little bit of kind of credibility back to them, throw that back to them. And I think I tried to always incorporate the why, which is something we should always be doing in franchising. Actually, all of these things with franchisees, whether it's coming from a female young person or not, is to help them understand why we're saying what we're saying. A good example of that is I had a franchisee he always resisted a lot of things. I know, you're shocked to hear it, right?
A mismatch, right?
This one franchisee, I know.
Never experienced that.
Yeah, I remember I would show up to work with him, and I'd get there once he was already open, and he'd be wearing blue denim jeans, and that was not part of our uniform. And I would have to figure out how to tell him that, how to get him to not just laugh me off and just ignore me. And so what I would do in that situation is like help him understand that if we let you break the rules, then does that mean that none of the rules really matter here? And another franchisee over in the city, 20 minutes away can also break the rules. And now they're doing something that's negatively impacting your brand. And so this is all about protecting your investment, right? So it was really making sure that they understood why and creating that buy-in. And then lastly, really just having to work really hard.
Yeah.
My dad said to me, he said, he put the fear of God in me. He's like, you're going to have to work, twice as hard because everybody's watching you because you're the boss's daughter and you're young and you're female. He actually said, you got 3 strikes against you, young, female, and boss's daughter.
Yep.
So working hard really helped too. So that would be some advice I would give people in that situation.
Well, I think that's so important because what that does is build credibility. And it sounds like the answers that you were giving were ways he could provide value instead of a criticism. You're putting it in a way that he's going to benefit the brand as a whole and not making it all about him, which I think, as young as you were, was incredibly wise. So to build on the advice that you're talking about, I don't know that everybody has that instinct, like we call it how to work people. My dad can work people into any decision he wants them to make. And as a lawyer, that was a really good trait for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it goes for any business in any industry. How do you advise younger women in the advertising industry to communicate when they're in that position? Because I think it's hard to build credibility comes over time, but you still have to get your job done when you maybe haven't earned that. So what are some words of wisdom you have for young women in that position?
Yeah, I would say to really accept a little bit of vulnerability. I think that kind of like I was saying with the ego, when you can get the person on the other side to like let their guard down a little bit, they're going to be a lot more likely to listen to you. So I think instead of coming in assertively or aggressively and acting like you know more than them, I think come in with that sort of, I'm here, I'm also learning as well, but yet then like provide the value, demonstrate some level of knowledge and wisdom, or not, maybe not wisdom yet, but some level of sort of knowledge so that they can see that you do actually know something. But definitely that, and then the working hard, I think just those things are what I would recommend people to think about doing for sure. Young women, especially young women.
Yeah. Well, that humility that you talk about that says, I don't know it all. I too am learning. I'm here to share things I have learned from being in the business. I guess I call it humility and transparency.
Transparency too, yeah.
Yeah, builds that credibility, no matter what age. Like you said, your dad made it clear you have 3 strikes against you, so you had to work a little bit harder. So,
yeah, and even when I became a franchisee a few years later, people would, like, we had what we called back then field consultant, but now usually called franchise business coach, if any younger people don't recognize that term. So we had our field consultant coming into our stores, and it was often these younger people that it was a bit more of a junior role, and they would come in with that sort of level of assertiveness. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that's not going to work with me. So now I was kind of on the other side almost. And yeah, I should train you. But you're supposed to take care of me. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about for sure.
Yeah, you can't come in with that chip on your shoulder. Most folks don't listen to people that come in with a chip on the shoulder. They listen to folks that truly can get in touch with, you're asking me to do this or explaining me another way to approach this as a business owner because you understand the why. You want me to be more profitable. You want to protect the brand equity because you as a field consultant truly do care about my success. And until they get that, then you're just some young person coming in,
annoying.
Yeah.
On your high horse.
Exactly.
So it's an interesting role reversal that you've had. What do you think, in your experience as both a franchisor and a franchisee, has brought you, what has that experience brought you in your role today?
Ooh, that's a good question. And there's no question, out of all of the things I did in the past within the family business that, you know, really truly go from dressing up as Kelly Kebab at grand opening. Thank goodness that the head was covered, because I wouldn't have wanted my friends to know it was me in there. But you know, dressing up as Kelly Kebab, running around, you know, opening stores in Western Canada in the late 90s, and then being a franchisee and some other head office jobs in between. The thing that the one that I learned the most was by far the time in the field, supporting franchisees and learning about people in the field. So I think I'm super, super blessed that I had that opportunity, because what I see in franchising a lot is a lot of emphasis on the technical side of supporting franchisees. And even when it comes to getting a franchise up and running, people come to me for that as well. They want to franchise their business. That's pretty straightforward. Like, it's a lot of work and lots to think about, but it's a sort of a formula to go through and then steps to take. However, supporting franchisees and getting franchisees profitable, that's a unique thing to try to figure out. And that's where I really find my passion to be. And so I can look back and think about what worked and what didn't when I was in the field. And then as a franchisee, what worked and what didn't when my field consultant was trying to support us. And we were, you know, would look at them and think like, what are you, how are you trying to tell us something we already know? Or, you know, I learned a lot from that. So that people side has enabled me to have, because I already have a real passion for people, and having that experience, being able to then now make this my thing that I do is really fun for me. The other thing that I spend a lot of time on is helping franchisors figure out the right franchisee for their business with the vetting. Like, I guide them on that, which is, Rebecca, why we know each other, because we love doing historical profiles, of course. And that came as a result of me seeing that people coming to me and saying, I want some help with, I can't get my franchisees to go out into their communities and I can't get them engaged, and me going, well, let's lift the hood. And then to find out, well, that franchisee's not a fit. They're never going to do that. So then I needed to figure out a little bit more about, like, how can we make sure we get the right people into the system? So yeah, all of that really contributed to what I'm doing now. I never thought it would. This wasn't where I thought I'd end up, and I'm super happy I did.
Boom, you're here now. So, you know, I like the focus that you have, which is ROI. You know, it's about profit, but the other components are important. You know, a franchisor has to have a great replicable model, right? That's a part of what you help with and define and quantify in many ways. A franchisor has to have a viable market, a market where there's enough consumers that can benefit from the products or service. And then, of course, if it's a location based, it has to be a great location. That makes sense. And then this people part. So this people part is definitely an area that almost comes like second nature to you, where you can bring down the guard of the franchise, or you can have meaningful conversations. You've built that kind of trust, so you can then critique or offer feedback or make suggestions that then lead them to greater profitability. But not everybody has those people skills that you have. They have the technical skills, but they don't have the people skills. So is that something you had to develop? Did you take classes? Did you learn from your parents to not come in arrogant? I mean, how did you learn this?
That's a great question. I reflect on that a lot of the time. One of the things that definitely would contribute is the coming from a family of leaders. You know, both my parents being leaders, my dad building this business. My mom was involved in the earlier stages until they separated, but then my mom going out into the community and really establishing herself as a leader, more of like an unsung hero kind of leader, you know, quiet confidence, but doing good things and stepping up and taking action. So a lot of role modeling there, my brother as well. But as far as becoming a leader goes, when I think back to like when I was a 25-year-old franchisee, and now I realize how young that was. And that was a struggle, and we can talk about that as well if you want. And I think like I didn't know that I didn't, like, I don't think I had all the leadership skills I needed to have. I think everything that I have is either from back then anyways, is I grew up with some good influence and then put myself into the position that I had to figure it out. Not good for everybody, but since then have definitely done a lot of work over the past, especially the past few years since I started doing what I do now to support franchisors. Leadership is so critical. And so I've, done a lot more professional development, just through research and that sort of thing, books and podcasts and that sort of thing. So I think it's really important that we're always growing. And
Yes.
when I realized that this being a leader was a skill I needed to, or like, it's not one skill, but that I needed to make sure I was understanding would be helpful. That's when I started putting more attention to it. But I will say it's interesting because when I read about good leadership, I'm like, I think I do that. Oh, good. So I think a lot of it is innate. And I'm not trying to say that in an arrogant way or anything like that. We all have, I truly believe we all have our own unique gifts and talents that we're meant to give the world. And so I think one of mine is this people side of things and in role modeling, ways to be.
Yeah. So
I think that's true. And I try to highlight for younger people in mentoring roles that I do and help them identify what those are. Because sometimes you don't know that you're a leader or that you're a good helper. You're the person who gets it all done. So that kind of communication is really important. But what about mistakes? I want to ask you what kinds of mistakes you feel that you made, maybe your top 2 or 3 mistakes, but also the top 2 or 3 things you're most proud of in your career.
yeah.
Sure. Well, let's get the mistakes out of the way.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, I don't really think of things as mistakes. They're just lessons. So I'm one of those people that says this. If it was, mistakes are just, they're little detours in what we're doing. And if we can learn from them, we come out ahead. So I can't really say that I definitely don't have any regrets or anything like that, but things that I've learned. One of the things I guess I would say maybe I don't know if I'd do it differently, but when I look back, I can see now when I was, and I guess I'm giving this information because the audience is often for you, the people that are looking at becoming a franchisee in a business, correct? So
Yeah.
if there's any, young females listening right now, what I did that I would do different is I was too nice as a leader. I was trying too hard to be too nice. And I thought that by being nice as a 25-year-old boss, in which at least half of my staff were older than me. And I was like, female 25, we had a guy that was probably 55, which doesn't sound old now, but at the time,
it's not, trust me.
Yeah, I know,
not.
It's definitely not. Yeah. But at the time, so I was trying to create a fun, something that's important to me, culture. And I don't think I just didn't know how to do that. I don't think I realized I didn't know how, but I think I was just trying to be sort of nice, and let's make this fun and collaborative and all that. And what I would do differently now is if I was in that role is I would still put value on accountability and some boundaries that I didn't put in place that would help people. I think people respect and especially this was an entry-level job for my employees. So they were probably needing and wanting those boundaries. So to have had the confidence and even just to know to do this, to have some, level of accountability, and being able to, have like sort of consequences to that accountability that everybody would share. I think that would be one of the big things.
It's great advice.
Yeah.
Wow. I think it's also a feminine trait. That people pleaser, want to be like kumbaya, we're a big family, that you were trying to create, but some of the mistakes were a lack of accountability, which has people break rules. They don't even know there are rules, right?
Exactly. But what happened then as a result of that was we ended up with staff that were acted very entitled and complacent, they didn't want to work hard and all these things. And so you know, and yeah, we had to figure out how to, and my husband was working in the stores with me at the time. We had to, when I say we, that's who I'm talking about, but we had to figure out how to rein people back in then. And so sometimes you have to just clear the slate and start fresh. And I think we maybe even had to do that and maybe kept one or two of them of the group. But yeah, that's probably one of the bigger, earlier mistakes or lessons that I learned as a young female, you know, boss, I guess. I think what did you ask me? What I'm also most proud of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're going to ask you what you did wrong, I want to know what you did right.
Yeah. Yeah. I got more things I'm proud of for some reason, but maybe that's because I don't look at it as mistakes, as I said.
Right.
Something that I'm really proud of is when I changed the direction of where I was going in my life. So when I became a franchisee, that wasn't my plan at the time, but it was a great opportunity for me and I learned a lot doing it. But at one point I finally kind of felt like I was getting restless and I needed to do something different. And this was maybe around 15 years in. And my husband was running our stores. My kids were getting a bit older. And I took the time, and Elizabeth, you said it a few minutes ago, and I think Rebecca might have touched on it as well. I took the time to get clear on what were my strengths. Mm-hmm. And the way I did that, and I think this is a tip or trick everybody can do if you're trying to figure this out, is go to your people in your network that love you, or even like a colleague that knows you well from whatever you're doing. Ask them, what do you think are my top traits? What do you see in me? So I did this with about 5 or 6 different people, like family members and whoever I could think of that made sense, and realized there were some commonalities. And then I did the Strengths Finder test, which helped. Yeah. And so I got clear on my strengths. And I actually got some help with a career coach as well that I invested a little bit of money in, and realized that I knew I liked, you know, the idea of creating, found out all these things about myself that were there, but just sort of had to get dusted off, and put myself out there. Back then I called myself a franchise consultant because I didn't know that actually might mean broker. And it's, now I franchise growth catalyst, but I started walking around with a business card saying I'm a franchise consultant. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I'm proud of the fact that I took control of that when I wasn't feeling right and didn't just keep cruising along unhappy. Because I was cruising for a little bit, probably longer than but my kids were a little young, so that's my excuse. But if you're cruising, stop, reflect, be introspective, figure out what you're good at, ask your friends, like I said, colleagues, whatever, do some strengths finding testing, whatever, and then take the action. And I did it. And I have, you know, sort of failures even from when I did that. Not really regrets, but lessons. And landed where I am now. I'm super happy with what I'm doing. And if I hadn't done all that, I would never have known this. So I think a lot of people just get stuck in there. You know, I actually try to help people take those leaps a lot of the time. When I, you know, talk to people and they're kind of repeatedly talking about frustrations at their job or something, I'm like, well, like, you're not too old to change. Like, I was 38 when I thought I felt like I was too old to do a whole new thing. Now I think I could do it again in 5 years if I need to, or want to, or 10 years or whatever. Like, you're never stuck. So that'd be, I think what I'm most proud of is that. And then also the fact that I did this without my dad. I love my dad, but everything till then was completely handed to me on a silver spoon because he made this big fuss about me working hard and being a role model to other people in the company. But this had nothing to do with, you know, something he told me to do or suggested as a mentor or anything like that. I did this on my own, and I feel like I'm in the spot I should be, as opposed to, say, having tried to take over the company or something like that.
Yeah, so exciting. Wonderful things to be proud of, and great advice spun in between of stopping, reflecting, getting feedback from others that we respect or know us well to discover who we are and express it. And then secondly, to not be afraid to take the risk to reinvent yourself and to try something new. Even if you didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, that would come. You could always course correct. And that kind of willingness and courage, I applaud. Great job.
Thank you. I just believe so much that when we figure out what we're good at and we do that thing and we work in that, and I didn't even know, like, I knew I loved being around people. I knew I liked teaching and training and coaching, but I didn't know what that meant. And over time, it's like within what you're doing, find how you can do that, like it's, once you're tuned into it, it falls more into place. So I think knowing what you are good at and what gets you excited and all that, and then go there, and then you'll see it.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think one of the things I talk about in some of my personal writing is embracing your own reality and self-awareness. And I think if we don't take the time to find our own self-awareness and understand what it is that we're good about and passionate about, that's something I think a lot of women don't give ourselves the luxury of, because your daughter's small, so now's not the right time. Or we have 3 kids in college, now's not the right time. Or you can always find a reason not to take that little bit of time and figure out what it is you're good at, and then fully embrace it, warts and all, and find the direction that fits into that. So I think there's so much wisdom in that last little bit of conversation in terms of identifying those things and knowing yourself so well. It's a hard lesson, I think, especially for women.
I think we're afraid to do it sometimes. So
and we don't give ourselves permission because we have a lot of responsibilities. And does that take away from someone else in our lives, our family, our parents, our kids, our spouse, whoever? As we're winding down here, though, I wanted to talk about what you have really exciting things that you're doing. You're doing a little rebrand that I love. I think it looks really great, and I love the message. So I want you to tell us a little bit about what it is you're doing now that's new and exciting and fun, and then let us know when you finish that how to get in touch. What is the best way if people want to reach you to do that?
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. So I had gone and worked for a company for about 1 year and 3 months. And when I came out, when I moved on from that company, and I knew I was meant to do this, create something bigger. And so that's where the rebrand came from. It was like, okay, I'm back on my own. I need people to kind of know that. And I had people saying to me, your logo doesn't represent you, and your branding doesn't represent the person that you are, that, this action oriented or whatever, all these things. So that's where the rebrand came from. I also, just in working with my clients one-on-one, I love that type of work, but I also wanted to be able to reach more people. So the roundtables really happened initially as a result of COVID, but I also love the opportunity to bring people together. So they're just a free opportunity for franchisors to come together in a safe environment where they can just work together on their challenges. It's pretty free flowing. It's free flowing. Different people show up every week, just like at a roundtable at a conference. But the other thing I'm launching is the Play Bigger performance groups, which are going to be just an individual small group that meets regularly, same people each time, to work through challenges, kind of mastermind style, with accountability, with goal setting. So there will be everything from, getting ideas and working through challenges to just that feeling of having a support group. And I've got a couple of pilot groups going right now, and I'm getting incredible feedback that people love this opportunity to not only learn from each other, but then also I can throw in some insights when necessary as well. So those are a couple of the big things I'm working on right now.
And how do they get hold of you, Angela?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, probably the best way, you can go right to email. It's angela@angelacote.com. My website is not yet rebranded, but yes, it is me. So that's just angelacote.com. And as you probably both know, I'm all over social media, so you can always find me there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, great. Angela, we want to thank you so much for our first guest and our guinea pig. And I hope it was as good of an experience for you as it has been for us.
It's been amazing.
We've been thrilled. Okay, good. I'm so happy about that. So we're going to break off to the next commercial break, and sponsorship by the Franchise Woman Magazine. And Angela, we will see you again soon, I'm sure. Thank you so much.
In person.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thanks, Angela.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.